A Nen master with great aura efficiency probably spends far less than that. Someone like Netero might only spend around 300 aura per minute, for example. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why Gon versus Knuckle is genius. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. So, Gon versus Knuckle is a battle between one of the most gifted characters in Hunter x Hunter versus an experienced veteran hunter. Today we're going to analyze every single power-up and ability these two characters display to explain overall why Gon versus Knuckle is genius. Gon and Killua had entered the Chimera Antark with renewed confidence from clearing Greed Island. Rightfully so, seeing as how numerous Nen users had been trying to clear Greed Island for years. For some, the task was so challenging that they gave up on ever trying to return to the real world. Meanwhile, Gon and Killua enter the game as absolute rookies to Nen combat and end up clearing the entire game in around just 6 months of training with Bisky. However, they're immediately humbled by the overwhelming power of Pito. Killua states that they were complacent and too confident in their powers. After realizing that they were too weak to be useful in the mission of defeating the Chimera Ants, Netero gives them a challenge. If you want to live as hunters, take down these two assassins and then come find us. These two assassins are Knuckle and Shoot. Gon and Killua have a discussion about their strategy for defeating Knuckle and Shoot. Killua states he does not fully agree with Morel's advice on not calculating odds before going into a Nen battle. Killua wants to get stronger, but he also wants to figure out Knuckle's abilities and come up with a plan to defeat him. Gon states, our goal isn't just to defeat Knuckle and Shoot. Our goal is to get strong enough so that we can go back to the NGL and rescue Kite. This scene shows us that Killua still thinks like an assassin, while Gon thinks more like a hunter. This echoes what Morel was saying. Bisky states that Netero is known for being unreasonable. If he gives you 1 month to accomplish a goal, then accomplishing it in 1 year would still be challenging. Bisky states that it takes a month of training to increase your Ren by 10 minutes, and their goal was to increase their Ren by 120 minutes. That means their goal is to make more than a year's worth of progress in this 1 month. Bisky then uses her Hatsu ability to allow Gon and Killua to get 8 hours worth of sleep in just 30 minutes, and it essentially creates a hyperbolic time chamber type situation during this arc. 10 days later, Gon and Killua have already increased their Ren endurance to 3 hours. Even using Bisky's Hatsu ability, this feat is still incredible. This means they already made a year's worth of progress in just 10 days. This is really only possible due to Gon and Killua being genius characters. Immediately after achieving this goal for the first time, Bisky tells them to go fight Knuckle while in this exhausted state. When Gon and Killua meet Knuckle, we're immediately introduced to the fact that Knuckle's biggest weakness is that he's too kind. Seeing that Knuckle is considerably stronger than Gon and Killua, and they're exhausted on top of that, in their first encounter, he lets them get free attacks on him. Gon, in this exhausted state, lands Rock on Knuckle, and it instantly one-shot KOs him. This implies that even characters physically on par with Kite can't withstand being hit by Gon's rock if the attack lands. In their next battle, Knuckle fights Gon and Killua both at the same time and defeats them both with ease. Knuckle states that if Gon and Killua were to win this fight while they're this exhausted, their renewed confidence would allow them to improve exponentially. This implies that confidence alone can have some sort of effect in Nen combat. Evidence of this is also shown when Killua removes his Nen needle. Gon states that Knuckle had been defeating them both at the same time while not even using half of his strength. On the second to last day of their training, Gon and Killua maintain Ren for 3 hours easily without getting tired. That would mean that their maximum Nen endurance is actually beyond that, even though this training arc ends with Gon and Killua only accomplishing half of what Bisky had planned for them. Bisky states she'll be happy enough if they at least figure out what they lack. The remaining few chapters of this training arc, where Gon fights Knuckle 1v1, are specifically dedicated to both Gon and Killua overcoming their own individual weaknesses. Chapter 207 and 208, where Gon fights Knuckle 1v1, are actually both titled Weakness Part 1 and 2. Gon starts the battle and is immediately speed blitzed by Knuckle. Knuckle, being nice, gives away his position so that Gon can block the attack. Gon states if Knuckle hadn't given him a warning, warning, he would have been one-shot by this initial punch. Knuckle explains that Gon's Hatsu ability has two big weaknesses. One of them is a long wind-up time, and the second is that he's putting all of his aura into his fist, which leaves the rest of Gon vulnerable to counterattacks. Gon has about as much aura as a mid-ranking pro, but the big thing Gon lacks is experience and real combat. Just by reading the flow of his aura, he can tell what Gon's planning to do and predict his next attack. Not only is Knuckle holding back, but he's teaching him how to become stronger mid-fight. This is where Gon invents the John-Ken feint. As Knuckle sees Gon charging up rock, he hesitates, trying to stop the attack. Gon uses this as an opening to land a normal kick on Knuckle. This is one method Gon thinks up on the fly to overcome the weakness of John-Ken's long charge-up time. LeeLos states another advantage with the John-Ken feint is that people won't know if he's using the close, long, or mid-range attack, so however they react to Gon charging his ability, he'll have some way to counter. If they jump back, he can hit them with paper. If they try to punch him, he can dodge and counterattack, and if they go mid-range, he can hit them with scissors. This turns the John-Ken from a very simple one-trick ability to something pretty versatile that can determine the direction of a fight. LeeLos states that Gon figured this out in the middle of combat and follows it up by saying Gon learns and improves at an extraordinary speed. Seeing how LeeLos trained side by side with Gon all throughout the entirety of Greed Island and is now impressed by his learning speed far after that, this implies there's actually a possibility that Gon is becoming more talented the more he learns. As Gon fights Knuckle, Gon is continually getting stronger mid-battle. LeeLos states Knuckle clearly has the upper hand, but Gon is starting to hold his own against him. He's minimizing damage by increasing his aura's area of defense, and he's getting used to Knuckle's speed, so he's not getting hit by surprise attacks anymore. This shows us more of the value of battle experience. However, this scene in particular might be unique to just super genius characters like Gon and LeeLos. Essentially, when you're as talented as Gon and LeeLos are, you can get a lot stronger and potentially even faster from just one fight. We also find out that Gon can only fight for about 22 minutes if he uses 3 John-Kens, because John-Ken uses up a huge amount of aura. At the end of this battle, Knuckle is in the middle of giving Gon even more advice, and Gon uses this as an opportunity to launch his final attack. Gon from long range charges up a John-Ken, with Knuckle and LeeLos having no idea what he's planning to do. Gon then fires paper, and it launches all the way to reach Knuckle. This shows us that Gon continues training his abilities off-screen. This was already proven with Gon's scissors ability, in which, during Greed Island, he could only use scissors to cut a leaf 1 out of every 10 tries, but in the beginning of the Chimera Ant arc, he was now strong enough to use scissors to chop through Chimera Ants that could withstand the strength of his punches. The same applies with paper. The first time we saw Gon attempt paper, he could not even make his aura fly through the air. He also spent a considerable amount of time trying a mission training technique from Bisky, but he was failing to accomplish it by the end of the Greed Island arc. So maybe Gon continued doing this training off screen because even LeeLos was surprised by this ability, or maybe Gon's just so talented that he makes massive improvement to his abilities even without training them. After Knuckle reflects paper, Gon's immediately behind Knuckle, about to finish the fight with one more John-Ken. This is the first time Gon has done a John-Ken combo attack, giving even more evidence that Gon's basic Hatsu ability is actually very versatile. However, Gon runs out of aura and passes out on the ground. Knuckle states if Gon hadn't run out of aura, Gon would have actually won the fight with this attack. He thinks of 2 ways to overcome his weaknesses in a short 20-minute battle: the John-Ken feint and the John-Ken combo attack. On top of that, he starts to adapt to Knuckle's speed that was speed blitzing him at the start of the fight, and his overall aura control improved a bit. You could make an argument that for genius characters like Gon and LeeLos, battle experience is such a big buff, it's almost comparable to Hockey Blooms in the story of One Piece. Knuckle defeated Gon while for the most part just using basic attacks and never once even used his Hatsu ability. In their final day of training, this time Knuckle states, "I'm giving it my all from the very beginning." Gon says that he can't compete with him in speed, so he has to risk getting hit and counter back. Instead of trying to follow Knuckle with his eyes, he uses his aura to sense where Knuckle's throwing a punch and begins counterattacking. This scene is underrated and shows that Gon has already made massive progress from the day before. And the day before, Gon was getting speed blitzed by Knuckle's warm-up punches, but now Knuckle's going full strength and Gon is still reacting to him. Gon also uses a miniature version of N without ever being taught how to do N. The distance of Gon's aura does not reach the minimum requirements to do N. However, the fact that he's instinctively doing a miniature version of N is very impressive. Killua goes on to do this exact same thing later in the Chimera Antarc. With Knuckle's first attack, he activates his Hatsu ability, which is one of the most detailed and complex Hatsu abilities in the entire series. Knuckle's Hatsu ability has a mascot named APR. APR is invincible, and he simply represents the total amount of aura that you have to pay back to Knuckle with your attacks. Every 10 seconds, the aura debt that you owe to Knuckle is increased by a 10% interest, and every time Knuckle lands an attack on you, this simply adds to your aura debt. On top of this, Knuckle won't take any damage from your attacks until you pay back all of the aura debt. This Hatsu ability overall is extremely broken and makes Knuckle an extremely balanced character as well. Fighting Knuckle, characters go bankrupt extremely quickly, even if he's not fighting back at all. And when the amount of aura debt that you owe Knuckle is greater than your total remaining aura, then you go bankrupt. Going bankrupt means that you can no longer use Nen and you're stuck in a state of Zetsu for an entire month. This truly is just a broken Hatsu ability. Knuckle's Hatsu ability also really reflects his mentality of his only weakness is being too nice, because really the only way you're going to defeat Knuckle is if he lets you hit him, or if you're just way faster than Knuckle and can speed blitz him, or you have a super powerful attack that you can land on him in one shot. This fight also gives the clearest and most in-depth explanation to the difference between aura capacity and aura output. The actual terms listed in the manga are called potential aura power and actual aura power, but it's much easier to understand the concept if you use the terms aura capacity and aura output. Aura capacity represents your total amount of aura. Aura output is the amount of aura that you can put in a single attack. Knuckle states that your total aura capacity and your total aura output can be increased by training. This explains why characters like Gon have an aura capacity of 21,500, meanwhile characters like Morel have an aura capacity of 70,000. As a hunter, the older you are, the more time you have to increase your aura capacity and aura output. In theory, older and more experienced hunters, not only would they be better at fundamental Nen techniques like aura flow and having just overall more battle experience, but they should, in theory, also just have a larger aura capacity and greater aura output. This is a very smart power system that Togashi implemented, because it makes it so that even though Gon and Killua are geniuses, they still have to put a lot of time and experience in to becoming Nen masters, especially when you consider characters like Jing that are also a genius but simply have 2 decades more experience than Gon and Killua at the same time. Another element of Nen combat is aura efficiency. This concept doesn't really have a name given in the manga, but the best way that I've found to describe it so far is simply call it aura efficiency. Knuckle explains that in Nen combat, fighters typically use about 1 aura per second, and when you use Nen techniques like Yo, Ryu, and Ken, the aura consumption increases 6 to 10 times more. So instead of using 1 aura per second, characters are using at least 6 to 10 aura per second. He then states that because Gon is not good at controlling his aura yet, he uses 10 aura per second. This implies that characters that are good at controlling their aura use less than 10 aura per second. So this concept, I would refer to it as aura efficiency. In other words, the better you are at controlling your aura, the more efficient you are with your aura. The better you are at controlling your aura, the less aura you spend per second. Gon, even without using his Hatsu abilities, is someone who spends about 600 aura per minute of Nen combat. A Nen master with great aura efficiency probably spends far less than that. Someone like Netero might only spend around 300 aura per minute, for example. This is just another very detailed area of Nen combat that I've never really spoken about in a video before. This is also kind of hinted at when speaking about Netero. Zeno, when he's talking about what makes Netero so powerful, powerful. He states that Netero's aura is very quiet, so you can never tell what attack he's going to do by reading the flow of his aura. Maybe aura flow and aura efficiency are both one and the same. Maybe having more precise and quiet aura flow automatically makes you more efficient with your aura as well. Gon and Knuckle continue fighting, both trading punches. Knuckle states Gon actually wins this exchange. He gets more punches in and repays about 100 aura. However, that really doesn't matter. It wasn't even half the amount of the 10-second interest. This shows us that if you're relative to Knuckle in stats, there's almost no chance of defeating him. You have to either be considerably faster than him or have an ability that does major damage in one punch. Also, this scene is more proof of Gon getting magnitudes more powerful mid-battle. As before, he was getting speed blitzed by Knuckle's warm-up punches, but now Gon's capable of winning punch exchanges with a full-power Knuckle who's not even taking damage from his attacks. The rest of the battle ends off screen. We see that APR has turned into a Zetsu Nen beast, showing us that Gon lost the fight due to not being able to repay the aura debt in time. This was actually a very unique way to end a training arc with Gon and Killua. They did the best that they could and still just straight up failed. This is in stark contrast to what happened all throughout Greed Island, in which Gon and Killua accomplished every training goal Bisky gave them and accomplished the goal faster than she expected they would. This time, Gon and Killua don't even complete half of Bisky's training and then both lose to Knuckle and Shoot. It was a very interesting way to start the beginning of the Chimera Ant arc. Even after a month of non-stop training, they still lose to Knuckle and Shoot. However, they still made great progress and got a lot stronger. They really made more than a year's worth of progress in just 1 month, and the feats that they performed were only possible because Gon and Killua are genius characters. Overall, this is one of my favorite training arcs in the entire series. It explains so many different elements about Nen combat, and honestly, it's just very cool. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the views. I appreciate the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see ya on the next one.